Hey everybody, Phil here again from Japan with another of these daily little coronavirus videos that I'm making for whatever reason, mostly for my own sanity. I don't know if I'm overly worried, it infuriates me that there's not a lot of information out there in English about what's happening in Japan, because I think Japan, the way they're dealing with it is different, and all the rest of that stuff. Anyway, let's get into what's happening today. So you remember a couple days ago I did this video and I had a monkey riding a Segway, and that was about this guy Shimura Ken, who's a comedian, famous comedian here, been around for decades. And, well, he's dead. He died of a coronavirus-related illness, pneumonia, I assume. He died last night, late last night. So personally, I'm a bit shocked and saddened by that. I mean, most Japanese comedians I don't like. Comedy doesn't translate very well. This guy, I think there was something special about him. He was not only, funny, but it was also what he was doing, and he did a lot of good for animal welfare and awareness and things like that, arguably, but whatever. He died, and he's kind of the big celebrity that I hope that if anything positive can come out of his death, it's that people will say, some awareness. People will say, wow, it can happen to him. It's a serious thing. He was big star. So it's quite a sad thing that he's gone. So that's kind of the big national news. Yes, should one person's death be big national news? Whatever, that's celebrity culture. In other things that are happening, we have this, there's a care house in Chiba Prefecture. Chiba is next to Tokyo, to the east. Chiba is around where Narita Airport is and so on. There's a care house there that cares for people with disabilities, handicaps as they call it here. And that has been hit. That is a cluster, as they call it. All 86 people, that's all the patients, all the staff have tested positive. What does that tell you? That tells you they definitely precautions were not taken, either because of lack of supplies or lack of awareness. Whatever it is, another 86 people rallied up there on the numbers. That's a big story here, rightfully so. I think hopefully that will also shock some people into thinking, this thing is not under control. Excuse, my heater is making noise there. Everything in Japan has a little song. So, yeah. Another outbreak, another cluster as they're calling it, is a Kyoto student who came back from their European vacation. They went to England and Spain. And they came back on the 21st, which is just over a week ago, and went to some functions and has infected other people. So this come home and quarantine thing, that's not working. In my own area, I always said we only had one case, and then we had another case, and now we have 5. And that's because an English tutor met at a popular British pub in the town or city, of Sendai, and they met with somebody from Akita. I don't know all the details, but basically if you were at that pub anytime, certainly on March 20th, so that's 10 days ago, and as I talked about, the numbers are always 10 days behind because of the incubation. So if you were in that pub called the Hub, I think it's the Kokubuncho one or Ichibancho one, you should be a little bit concerned. March 20th and obviously a few days after that will be people who have some concern there. So now we're up to 5 in this area. So, yeah, it's not all good news. I'm a bit depressed about it all, actually, he says with a laugh. And I wanted to talk also about Japan's testing methodology. There's another guy who's got much, much more popularity on YouTube than me, who's a Japanese teacher on YouTube, who's done a video about the Japanese testing methodology and why they do it that way. It's slightly, I feel, he may disagree with me, but I feel like it's either at best an apologetic video, saying, sumimasen, that's the way we're doing it in Japan. At worst, I would say it's just, the guy has no balls, just form an opinion. He says, I'm not going to say because I don't know if it's a good thing or not. It's not a good thing. Okay, you can say that, yes, there's a percentage of false positives and false negatives that mean that the tests are not as effective and the chances of you being positive and all the rest of that stuff. That's true. But the problem is that people are reacting to the false positive. If you're even being tested, you should just assume you're positive. Just stay at home, not go out and kill the rest of us. If you're being tested, just assume you're positive and stay at home. We'll deal with the false positive and false negative numbers later. It's your behavior after being tested that's the problem. To say that we shouldn't be testing so much, Japan's attitude, by the way, just to make it clear, I'll put the thing on the screen if we have to, that essentially they only test people that they're pretty sure are positive. That's also the way the Japanese legal system works. They only arrest people that they're 90% sure that they can convict. So they just don't arrest people for the other cases. That way they don't have a failure of conviction, right? They just have a failure to solve crime. So it's the same thing what they've done with the testing here. They're only testing people, either you've been in close contact, and that means prolonged, closed room contact with somebody who's tested positive, which is unlikely because who's being tested. So if you've been in close with contact, or you've traveled to an area where coronavirus is prevalent, then, and you have a fever or respiratory problems and, fever or respiratory problems and a fever, then they'll test you. Maybe. It seems that there's some, it's up to their discretion as well. And in general, if you're not somebody who's been in close contact with somebody who's positive, or somebody who's, you haven't been to these areas, then if you're in the general population, if you have cold-like, flu-like symptoms, a fever, extreme fatigue, and difficulty breathing for 4 days, then maybe you can get tested. Then you should phone the hotline. Unless you're a senior citizen, underlying health conditions, or pregnant, and you've had those cold-like symptoms, fever, fatigue, and difficulty breathing for 2 days, then you can phone the hotline. If you feel anxious, you can phone the other hotline. So they're really limiting, very strict on the number of people, the reasons they can test. So when you do that and you look at the numbers, it's laughable, really. So in Tokyo, like the other day, I'm not sure what day this is here. This is the 26th, which is last Thursday. They tested 87 people in all of Tokyo. 20 million people, 87 of them, they managed to stick a thing up their nose. If you look, the chart's even more laughable. If you look last Sunday, they tested 1. I mean, you can test more people than that by accident. It's like, are you kidding? I hate to get all sarcastic, but give me a fucking break. 87 people in Tokyo, the heart of the outbreak here. In all of Japan yesterday, again, going day to day on this one website for consistency, they seemingly, nose to the grindstone there and managed to test 296 people in the last 24 hours. I mean, 296 people. You've seen video of around here where there isn't any, but there's more than that people around here. It just, I don't know. You say there's no conspiracy. You say there's no, kind of clouding of the issue or whatever. But give me a break. There is no harm in testing. And yeah, okay, in this video that this guy made, there's other things he talks about how great, Japan has a lot of CT scanners, and CT scanners, are great for pneumonia. That's true. They're great at detecting pneumonia. They have no idea. A CT scanner can't tell you the cause of anything. They can tell you that you have pneumonia, but they can't tell you why you have pneumonia. That's a huge flaw in that guy's video, in my opinion. So there we go. I'm going to not do the Japanese thing, and I'm going to come out with an opinion and say what Japan is doing. Their methodology for testing is wrong. There's no fundamental basis for doing that. And perhaps their cluster theory and the way they're doing cluster management or whatever, cluster measures or whatever they called it, that I'm not saying that doesn't work, because I think that is working. But there's no excuse for not testing, in my opinion. It's just fucking lazy. And then in other news, maybe you didn't hear about this. There's some other things outside of the direct stuff that I want to talk about. And one is that there was a plane crash last night in the Philippines that maybe you didn't hear about. And that plane was coming to Tokyo with 8 people on board. And they were all medical personnel from the Red Cross, I believe. And they were coming here for whatever reason. I'm not sure. That's interesting. So there was a plane crash last night. Small plane, 8 people all killed. And I didn't find the link first. This one is kind of funny. That there was a baby tiger born in the zoo in Mexico the other day, and they've named the tiger COVID. Whatever. I don't know. I don't understand it. The world's crazy. And, also people seem to be totally ignoring North Korea. So, Kim Jong-un's over there rubbing his hands together. And he is blowing shit up. Sending missiles and blowing things up. No one seems to care about them anymore. I mean, it's like I used to be worried about undercooked chicken a little bit. Now I'm worried about COVID, and everyone used to be worried about North Korea, and they're actually doing stuff. They're building nuclear facilities. That came out 2 weeks ago. Nobody talked about that. They're firing missiles. They fired a lot of missiles in the last 2 weeks, and nobody's talking about that. So, the coronavirus is only going to last so long. North Korea seems to last forever. So, there you go. And finally, the other Japanese story is there's something about the problem of sex delivery workers, which I didn't even know was a thing, in Tokyo, and how they're being deeply affected by coronavirus. So I do feel for them. It's a very bizarre little story. Since the coronavirus, things are down 75%. I assume things, they mean customers, not things. Anyway, that's it for today. It's a bit of a long one, bit of a ramble. I'm a bit pissed off today. And this Shimura Ken thing is a bit of a drag. So, take care.